All right, welcome everyone to another live stream of ours. And today it's Thursday, not Friday that we usually stream, so I can't say happy Friday just yet. I am looking forward to it though. What we have today is another part of our series of where we're talking about real estate across the US. And we're still in Colorado, right? But we're talking about Boulder today. Whereas a couple weeks ago we had introduced you guys to Denver. So we got a lot of exciting things to discuss. In fact, some changes that we've seen even in the past couple weeks here about interest rates. So we've got Nikki, of course, our mortgage specialist, talking about interest rates with us. We've got Nathan joining us, giving us a little bit of reasons why this is happening and what he's seeing in some of the changes. Maybe talk a little bit about the stock market as well, a little bit of an adjustment there. Alan, of course, our Bay Area real estate expert. Alan, welcome. Good to have you again. And
Everybody.
then, of course, we've got Jennifer. So, Jennifer is the whole reason we are running this Boulder webinar. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. Jennifer is an expert and has been in the field of real estate for quite a while in Boulder. So, she's going to give us a little bit of insights of what she's seeing over there in Boulder, how that's a little bit maybe different than Denver that we talked about last
Mhm.
time. And then just dive into what someone can expect if they are going to move over there. Okay, so the webinar, again, as we've talked about last time, we'll touch upon the financial aspect, the buying aspect, and then, of course, the location side aspect of it. As always, right, if you guys have questions, feel free to use the chat box if you're in the webinar with us, or of course, a comment in our live stream social media areas. Okay. Before I always get started, though, I always got to go through our disclosures, right? Anything that Diversify, Nathan and I, and the team here that we talk about is for general financial planning education only, right? This is to help you guys ask the right questions, start thinking about the right questions to ask, right? And not for personalized financial planning advice. Okay, if that's something you're interested in, there's a place for that, diversifycapital.com. Go ahead and watch our video and see what our services are about. If we're talking about investing or mortgage rates, right, anything like that, we're not soliciting you to be buying any investment products right now, right? It's not something that we're going to be talking about in this webinar, but just something that we always say. And then finally, any tax piece that we talk about, right, is for general tax education. And again, if that's something that you have interested in questions about, focus that to your tax professionals. All right, well, let's get started here. I'd like to get started with Alan telling us a little bit about what's he's seeing still in the real estate market in the past couple of weeks. Has things slowed down? Are things still flying off the shelves? Alan, what are you seeing on your side right now?
On my side, and oh, I should say thank you for me being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
These webinars are terrific, and I get great feedback from my clients and people that attend it. What we're seeing in the Bay Area, at least from my clients on the peninsula, it's interesting. I have been meeting in the last 2 weeks with sellers, and they've been asking, should we wait to put our house on the market?
Mm,
Well, the interesting thing is that there's not a lot of inventory. And because interest rates are so low, the buyer demand is really high. So for instance, last week we met with 3 different clients on the peninsula. And rather than waiting for where you would normally wait maybe to the summer, they're actually speeding up and getting their houses ready to put them on the market. And actually, one of them is moving out to Boulder. So they will be contacting Jennifer. So good. And so they are putting it on fast track, putting their houses on fast track so that they can get the multiple offer situation. We had a property in Redwood City. It should have, when we listed the property, we listed it for 1,765,000. What should have happened is it should have sold between 1.9 and 1.950. We ended up receiving 12 offers and it sold for 2,105,000. And great for the seller. And that's what we're seeing time and time again, these properties selling for over what they should be selling for. And that's just setting the bar for the next house and the next, in the neighborhoods. So we're seeing this frenzy of sellers getting their houses on the market, and there's just not enough inventory.
yeah. And Jennifer, are you seeing the same on your side right now in Boulder? Are you seeing this influx? But also, we were talking about, right? People know about Boulder already, right? People aren't just
Yeah.
discovering that. But what kind of, pace are you seeing, sellers and buyers transact at?
Same exact thing that Alan was just talking about. I had a colleague call me yesterday, and he was really frustrated because they wrote same offer was like, I think it was listed at 1,775. They wrote a non-contingent cash offer with an escalation clause up to 2.25 million, and they lost. So we have we are down in inventory. We are a super desirable area in the country right now. And I think we've seen this huge jump from like maybe what a high price point was to it's gone exponentially higher.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second too, just the type of
Yeah.
price points and that we're looking at. But, I think a question that I would imagine people are asking is like, if the sellers are getting such good prices, right? And this goes back to a couple webinars that we've had, like, is this still a good time to buy, right? And I think we always talk about Nate, right? Like, you're buying for a couple reasons, and the main reason should be for long term, right? And that's something that you're probably still talking about with your clients right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking in, lead up to this webinar. My first home purchase in 2018 was at 4.6%. 2018, only 3 years ago, right? So, the fact that we still have a 2 in front of our mortgage number is super cheap. Alan was saying, 6%, anything below that is really cheap. So I think the ability to borrow is at these rates is a huge reason why you're seeing the improvement. And we talked about it on our Denver webinar a little bit as well. A 1% decrease in rates is the equivalent of a 10% increase in your affordability for that home. And so to go from 4.6, we touched as low as 2.5. We're not, there anymore, but even, about a 2% drop in rates over the last couple of years, yeah, that makes sense why home prices are going up. But at the same time, we also don't have a bunch of home builders creating a bunch of new supply, especially, Jennifer can speak to this, more in the Boulder market. There's some restrictions on increasing supply. And so you have all this new wave of buyers that, have more affordability. Makes sense we're seeing inflation happen on real estate. And that's why we also have seen an increase in rates recently. Everyone is talking about inflation in 2021. We printed 40% of our GDP last year, 40%, $8 trillion of stimulus went into helping us get through COVID last year. We don't, print 40% of our GDP and not see inflation. The reason we're not seeing it yet is people are still stuck inside, right? We don't have the vaccines fully rolled out. Just wait until those CPI numbers, consumer price index numbers, come out in summertime, when hopefully the vaccine is, more fully implemented, people are outside again, people can spend again. That's why we're seeing an uptick in rates. Bond buyers are saying, if inflation is coming, my payments are going to be worth less. I need more interest to be compensated for this higher inflation. And we've seen almost a 70 basis point increase in rates, the 10-year treasury rate specifically, since the end of last year. So inflation is here, and inflation is a big reason that we're seeing uptick in prices on real estate too. So just relaying it from the bond market into the real estate market.
Yeah, and Nikki, relaying that back into the actual mortgages. I mean, we were talking about this just a little bit ago as well, that, right? I mean, it's still, I think, fairly new, right? This is just happening today and yesterday. What are you seeing in the mortgage rates, and what people should be expecting right now if they're going to get a new mortgage?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, it's sort of a day by day, minute by minute. We had 2 price increases just today. So just know you can't lock a rate until you're in contract. As much as we would love to, you have to be in contract to lock a rate.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you're going to do is call your lender and make sure you get that locked in. Don't play the market, don't float it. The gamble is not worth it. It's likely to be headed up, not down. You might see one day where it settles a little bit, but we're seeing most rates around 3, maybe 3 1/8. Now you can still buy them down, which is where you put money up front to get a lower rate over the life of the loan. In some cases, in most cases, some portion of that money that you put up front is deductible. Check with your accountant on that. But it is a good time to buy down your rate is when you do a purchase versus a refinance, because you have to amortize it on a refi. So it's a good time to invest in the rate. If this is going to be a long-term home and you were really hoping for that 2 3/4, 2 7/8 rate, it's still there. You just may have to put a little bit of money up front for it. So rates have gone up from the lows of the lows by about a 1/2 point. Yeah. Which on an $800,000 loan, 20% down on $1 million price is about $400 in your payment, $350, somewhere around there difference in payments. So it's not fun, but it is still a great time to buy, and rates are probably going to be going up from here. I think that might be some part of the frenzy that we see, not frenzy, but the excitement in the marketplace is people do want to get those, they want to be able to go to the cocktail party and say the rate's in the twos,
Yeah.
and it's headed away. So
Yeah. And
I
I
like
think
the
that
way
brings
you
us
put that.
to talking about what you just said, right? That rates are still really good. And I would like to hear right from Jennifer and Alan. You guys are talking about, right? If I had a question, right, is this right the right time to buy because things are getting bid up? You guys were talking about what you were seeing across the last 7 or 8 recessions in terms of home prices, right? Share a little bit about that with our audience here, because I think that helps people put into perspective that yes, we might be seeing a little uptick here. Yes, markets are hot right now with the frenzy, but if we're investing for the long run, as we were talking about with Nate, right? What have you guys seen in the history, right, of you guys working in the industry over the last 7, 8 recessions?
Well, I'll start and then I'll let Jennifer take over. In the last 7 recessions, I wasn't in real estate. So let's just put
Yes,
that out
just
there. Not all.
understanding it. I'm trying to. Good point.
So, I've talked to, talking to Nate and talking to other financial advisors. When we go back and looking in history of the last 7 recessions, the only recession that we ever saw where real estate got taken down was with the financial crisis. Here in the Bay Area, San Francisco through Silicon Valley and the East Bay, it actually went up anywhere between 1% and 4% on average. And buyers were still buying. And that's when interest rates were as high as 18%. Buyers were still buying I think it was in the 80s when my parents were purchasing their second and third home. And so what people have to take into account is like what Nate said is, anything below 6% or below is free money in today. So when you hear, at 3% interest rate, that is a great rate to purchase. And so what's going to happen is that if you don't buy today, it's going to be, I wish I woulda. That's what I tell my clients. You're going to be looking behind you going, I wish I woulda. And what I see clients that didn't purchase 6 months ago, they got priced out. They just that little bit in 6 months, they got priced out by 50,000, 150,000 from a year ago. And they're sitting on the fence, and it still has not gotten down the real estate market hasn't gone down in this area. The other is that clients that purchased 4 years ago have said, or 5 years ago have said, they are so glad they have purchased because they could not have purchased today because in our area, how much it's jumped. And from there on, and I could now just start babbling. Go ahead. Your turn, Jennifer. You're supposed to stop me.
Oh my God. No, I mean, we're having the same experience. I do, it's so funny going through these different markets, right, over the years. So I think when I came in 2002, it was like a buyer's market, and there was like, we would get closing costs and prepaids and escrows covered and all sorts of stuff that just doesn't exist. Boulder is a very interesting place. It's so funny. My perception is that people think they're discovering it when they come here, but I've been doing this for nearly 20 years and I constantly am having this conversation with people where it's like, no, we've been discovered. Like everybody knows like the little intricacies of it. We are a really unique real estate market. I think, Aspen is in of itself a very unique real estate market because their average price point is about 10 million right now. But we are the highest equity gaining town in America. So since 1991, we've seen a 462% equity gain in a town of 100,000 people. And the county, we have a growth cap, and I think that really leads it. But the other thing is we are not a bedroom community. We are actually a community of industry. So we've got aerospace, we've got bioscience, we've got clean tech, we've got IT and software, we've got natural products, we've got like outdoor recreation, and we call them really like addicts, right? Like sports addicts. And then we've got the university. So 60,000 people a day drive into Boulder to go to work. If you look at a map of Boulder, like down, you'll see that there's a whole green belt around the town because the county has bought up as much land as they possibly can, and they don't want growth, which is a bummer in a lot of ways, because you do experience NIMBYism. I mean, our average price point right now is just under 1.5 million, and which is insane. It's a luxury town. And so, our challenges are like, where do our teachers live? Where do our service people live? Where do our police officers live? Those kind of things. So that's been our biggest challenge. During the recession, we saw a 3 to 4% equity gain. We had one quarter where we dipped down to -1%, and then we flew back up. In terms of your question, everybody who bought last year has seen a 20.4% equity gain since January of last year.
Yeah.
So we have years like that very commonly.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
you said 1.5 million roughly is right the median price
For the city of Boulder,
Mhm.
for the city, for the county, it's 840.
Got it. And what are you, right, like from a put into perspective for our viewers,
Sure.
right, that are coming from the Bay Area at $1.5
Mhm.
million dollars. Again, a lot of, single family homes, if you're trying to buy in the
Yeah.
peninsula, probably start at that level, right? Like what
Same,
type of
yeah.
square footage are we getting for something like that in Boulder?
It depends. So, I think it's becoming so scarce. So I would say, like, for 1.5 million, you might be getting about 1,700 square feet above ground tops. I think it's real similar in price point. I think that you guys see some more aggressive stuff. Like, I think a house my size, which is 1,800 above ground and 12 below, is in some areas like Burlingame. I mean, Ellen can speak to this. I think is closer to 4, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So there's that kind of discount, I guess. Sorry, my dog is
No
barking
worries.
at the delivery guy. But it would be, under 2,000 square feet, probably needing updating. In some cases, a tear down. I mean, we have some dirt that's selling for 2 million, depending on the views. We have some dirt that is getting bid up to 2.5, depending on the views. So it's a risk. We're just down in inventory. We're down like 47% in 2020, and now 23% off of that.
Yeah. And so, I mean,
Just curious, what does the time frame look like for someone that's doing a tear down and then rebuilding? Like here, there might be like a year wait to get somebody to look at your property.
Yeah. So yes, great question. You can look at it right now as like 18 months is kind of realistic. We laid off 700 people who work for the county and the city last year. So that really does decrease,
Permitting,
how
processing
fast they can move
times,
through
yeah.
permitting. So the builders, I mean, and our price to build ranges anywhere from $700 to $2,000 a square foot, depending on how custom you're getting. So yeah, so I think 18 months is on the low end realistic, and then 24 seems right.
Yeah.
And are there building restrictions?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So again, yeah. So we have I think it was implemented in March of 2013. It's the floor area height ratio.
Okay.
So yes, so if you want to look it up, it's on. You can just Google FAR Boulder, and it gives you a calculator. It's very general, but you put in the size of the lot, and then it will give you the restrictions off of that. The other thing that we have are historic districts. So in a historic district, there's all sorts of things you can't change anyway. So yes, there are restrictions, to say the least. Mm-hmm.
Very similar to here. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that why you have 1,200 square feet underground?
I had a huge lot for downtown Boulder. So I live in a killer location. I knocked on their door like 12 years ago, and I was like, sell me your house. And I waited like a snake in the grass for this house. I waited a decade for this house. And so I have a 13,000 square foot lot downtown Boulder. Unheard of. Like a big lot in Boulder is like 9,000 square feet. So I actually could expand a ton. I didn't want to, but I want to do like a pool and a guest house and things like that. So we have 3 of us. We don't need a lot of square footage. It's just not my shtick. But somebody, they'll wait for us to die, because I always say, I'm like, I'm going to be the little old lady in this house, and they're going to be able to build whatever they want to build. Yeah, they could build 6,000 square feet on this lot.
Do most homes in
Gotcha.
Boulder have like an underground, like a basement, or is it like it, right? Because you were talking about,
Yes.
right, like X amount of square feet, right,
Yeah.
on land level, and then certain amount under.
Yeah.
Is that just how the houses are structured
Yeah,
there?
so Californians always say that to me. They're like, you guys have basements. So again, because we're so restricted in size that you can put on a lot of people are either there were basements or crawl spaces, and they're digging out the basements so they can have extra square footage.
Oh, so that's not included in the square footage. That is, oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah,
you
I
go and
know, it gets
count.
expensive here. It's spendy.
Yeah.
See, we
Yeah.
can't do that. That's included in the square footage. We can't do that here.
So if you look at our MLS, we have a total square footage and above ground, or a finished square footage, and then without a basement.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, it's interesting how they do it. Again, it doesn't matter because space is a commodity. So yeah, I think it's the same as you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
Can
so-
you tell us more about Boulder for someone
Yeah,
that hasn't been there? Like, do you guys have your own
Yeah.
airport? How close are you to Denver? What's the weather like?
Got it. Okay, so the weather's amazing. Let me see. Should I show you outside right now?
I would
we just
love
got
to.
we just got 10 inches of snow last night, and then it's
Oh,
like sunny
wow.
and amazing out. So this is like what we get, and I wish I could show you the mountains. So it's like we get 300, the quote is 300 days a year of sun, but it really is. I grew up in Minnesota where it was dark and cold all the time. So this is a dream. Like on Tuesday, what day is it? Thursday? Tuesday, it was 60 degrees. Then we got 10 inches of snow, and now it's melting again. So we're never like buried under snow in the winter. You'll wear t-shirts and shorts like in a week kind of thing. But then we have world-class skiing 2 hours away, which is great. It's a cool little town. So it's a college town. We've got the University of Colorado at Boulder. It's a beautiful campus. It's fairly expensive. So you get a certain demographic of people that are coming here for school. The physics department has won the Nobel Peace Prize, I think, twice, which is pretty incredible. We've got NCAR. We've got NOAA. Like, there's such cool stuff going on here scientifically. We've got Ball Aerospace. And so the vibe is really cool. Like, the vibe is not pretentious. That is one thing that I always have to remind people when they're coming to the area. I'm like, slow your roll. Like, nobody cares how much money you have. They've all done really cool stuff in their own worlds, and they're here for the lifestyle. Like, that is really what we've got going on. And like, people are not counting people's dollars. They're just not. People are not walking around showing off with like, material things. It's more about like really like what you get to do in the world. Like, that's the vibe, which is cool. I like it. I think that is, you always, when we have these waves of people come through, you see that happen and they get corrected really quickly, which I kind of love, which is great, and it's like,
Yeah.
nobody cares, like, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, so there is this really great casual thing. You can go out to, like a James Beard award-winning restaurant in jeans and a t-shirt, and they're stoked to see you, so that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really like that. There are, we have a lot of traditional wealth here, and then a lot of like new wealth that's been created within the generation. And, that's not what they're here for. They're here so their kids can go to really good schools, really good public schools, and
Mhm.
they can hike and they can ski and they can go camping and all the things. You can leave here at 8:20 in the morning on United and be surfing by 3 in the afternoon in Sayulita. So it's really great.
Do you take Denver Airport? I assume that's the closest for you guys.
Yeah, so we have a private airport in Broomfield, which is 9 miles away. So if you want to fly in private, you can fly in there, and it's great. And then when I'm noticing a lot of little air parks are starting to show up. So Boulder has an air park. It's mostly Cessnas, but Erie has an airport, and we actually have a listing out there on the market. It's 100 Cessna, and if you look at it, it's gorgeous. And you can fit a small jet into the actual hangar. It's 5,000 square feet, and so 4,900 foot long runway, so you can get off of there and get out of here really easily. Longmont has a little airport as well. So we've got little airports that have popped up everywhere. And I'm seeing more recreational pilots around, like retired pilots who want to just have their planes or car collectors, that kind of thing. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Jennifer, where do you think most of the people are coming from now that are migrating?
So traditionally, this is such an interesting question, Ellen. So traditionally, it is California, it is New York, it is Texas, Illinois, big time, Chicago. Those are all lifestyle moves. The property taxes are insane. New Jersey is another one. Our biggest influx of people last year, which was surprising to me, was Georgia.
Wow,
I
Georgia.
don't know why.
Okay.
I didn't, yeah. So I'm not sure why. However, that was the biggest statistic for NAR last year. But I mean, I'm primarily helping people from California, New York, and Illinois on a daily basis.
And you touched on it. You said the word taxes. Tell us a little bit about your taxes.
So like on a $2 million house here, you're paying $19,000 in taxes.
Okay, a little lower than us.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little. Wow, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
darn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Shangri-La, man.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, I think the main point is that, right? Like, if you're looking at what you've talked about outside of the neighborhood and how good it is in terms of the way that the lifestyle is, right? You're always also talking about, right, the same craziness that we're seeing, right, in the Bay
Mm-hmm.
Area. And in fact, I think across a lot of the real estate markets right now, because of what we've talked about, which is during the pandemic, people want more space, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has been, we talked about this too, a lot of new money being created in the last year, and that's going to continue with IPO lockup money coming due, right?
Yeah,
We've talked about
it's
that. I mean,
crazy.
last
Yeah.
year, the statistic is over $400 billion in market cap being generated in 2020. And a lot of that is coming up right now, right? People
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to sell, and they're thinking about, especially for right our young clients, this is maybe the first time they've gone through something like this. It's the time to buy. And with the situation where maybe they don't need to be in California, right? This is why we're
Yeah.
having these series and talking about it, which is
Yeah.
what is the best lifestyle that they want to achieve going forward. And right, we're hearing that directly from you, that here's some of the reasons why
Mm-hmm.
Boulder could work out, right?
Yep.
And I think we stress this a lot too, because we get this question just in a different sense, which is, you know, markets are so crazy right now. Stock markets are so crazy right now,
Yeah.
right? How do you buy in, right? Or real estate market is so crazy right now. How do you buy in? And I think it's all relative, right? Because if you asked me today and said, stock market is crazy, what's it going to be like in 20 years? I'd bet my life savings that it's going to be higher in 20 years than it is today, right? And it's all, I think, that ability to say, why are you trying to pick one specific point in time to try to get one deal when you're trying to own for a longer, right, span, right? Owning for not only an investment purpose where you're saying, I want to make sure that this is a good financial deal for me, but also from a half of it, the emotional and owning a place and the lifestyle that has to also fit. And I think that goes to answer so many questions why the markets right now, right, on a real estate side in particular, have still flourished, right, given where prices have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's two. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have clients here who are pulling money from their like initial investors and big companies that we've all heard of. And they're like, are these numbers real? Like
Yep.
let's diversify and put more into real estate. And, obviously they're still making money hand over foot in the stock market. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. And where does that,
And Jennifer, you just plugged our company name with
I sure
Diversify
did.
right there,
Yeah.
right? But no,
Yeah.
and that just goes to show you that we're not saying that, hey, right, this is fitted for everybody, but it's to have you guys start thinking about, right, different areas that you may want to go to, because at least for our audience, because we're primarily based in California, right, there's a lot out there to be thinking about,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot out there to be exploring, especially with the amount of money that potentially that we're seeing. Okay. And there's no right answer. There's never a right answer around, right? Is this the top or is this a bubble, right? Because that's, to me, a bad question to ask. I honestly think that when you ask that question, you put yourself to be wrong a lot of the times, because you have to say, yes, it's a bubble, or no, it's not a bubble. But 50% of people are going to be wrong and 50% of people are right, right? Like you're just going to be guessing at that point. And so I think focusing on the long term as you're thinking about this, along with what Jennifer and Alan have talked about in the real estate market and piecing that together can help you make that decision a lot easier, right? We are running up on 30 minutes here. Wanted to see if there's any last thoughts from our panelists today to provide to our audience before we close it out. We've heard, of course, a lot about Boulder. Was there any questions that you guys wanted to ask Jennifer more about Boulder that our audience would like to hear?
I'm going to ask a quick question. Jennifer, I assume that people should be fully pre-approved, that you're not going in finance contingencies at this point?
So that depends on the price point, like I think you and I, Nikki, have talked about this for a lot of the times we're doing cash deals. But because money is so cheap right now, people in the luxury realm are willing to do loans because why wouldn't you? So I would say a question was like, I can look at this deal that we had, we won out on, we were 8 offers. And we just said, they decided to finance it because they could, because it was like, I think they got 2.7 or something like that. And so they just said, if it doesn't appraise, which it did, they would make up the difference, but that they didn't leave that contingency in there. So really people are not, if you're in a multiple offer situation, people aren't leaving contingencies.
And that's what we're used to coming from the Bay Area. We're used to no contingencies, no appraisal. But people borrow money. I mean, especially in that sort of $1.5 million range. That's a first-time home buyer price range, crazy as that is. But it is important to get your pre-approval ahead of time so that you can go in with as clean an offer as possible.
I wouldn't actually show anybody a house if they weren't pre-approved. I don't have the time. And not to be a jerk about it. It's just like, I learned that in the last recession.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you, but
I don't know what's in your pocketbook. Why go shopping?
Right.
And I have a question for you, Jennifer. So in our area, in our market, we're putting anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000 typically into a house to get it ready, and that could be painting, staging, and some light work into it. And that gets the sellers back usually anywhere between 5 and 7 times that back. Numbers. So the house is typically in some type of turnkey or move-in condition. So the buyer doesn't have to remodel, they can move in. What types of conditions are the properties in that a buyer can expect?
It depends.
And now you're scaring me.
So I was sharing with you, let me see if I can find the address. In like I would say like everything between, call it like 2.5 to 10 and above, please make it look good. Like it must be staged, like go in and fix, if you got a crack in your stucco, like those kind of things. I want it to be like first date beautiful, right? Like going in, looking amazing. There's no reason why it should be not looking that way if it's that type of house. Now, we do have some homes that, that have incredible views. And those are really like these jewels that people will start throwing down on. So an example of that is, it was a few years ago, but I think it was 1810 Norwood. And the guy had lived in there, he died, he was 97 years old. He had lived in there I think he built it. And that was a bidding war, and it went upward towards 2 million. That's now privately on the market for like almost 9 million. The views are insane, but it's small. It's not even a family home, right? It's like better suited for empty nesters. So again, it depends. It depends on the property. Anything that's a tear down in a killer location, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. You're paying for the dirt, and you're paying for the view, or you're paying for the location or the school or whatever it is. And so that doesn't have to be a thing. And that could be upward to 2.5 million, depending.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It just depends.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think this was an awesome overview again as we're running across these different locations to share with our audience, right? And it's nice to hear because I personally, right, like if you ask me the difference between Denver and Boulder, I'm not sure, right? Like
No,
it's
they're totally different.
right, but you're right, like they're totally
Yeah.
different. And when we what we heard from our last series and talking about Denver to what we're hearing right now, it's a different
Yeah.
market, right? And I
But I
think
will
that's what
say
we want
this.
to showcase.
Yes, and I will say this to your audience. There's these great little towns. So the other thing you have to remember is Boulder is small and then the county is small. So the next town is now like northeast Boulder and it's called Gun Barrel and it's a 5-minute drive from my house, right? But back in the day it was really far. And then Niwot is 10 minutes and then Longmont is 20 minutes. And then you've got Louisville and Lafayette. So you've got these, they call it the L towns, and then there's Gun Barrel and Niwot as well. But you've got these cute little villages right around Boulder that are within, I mean, at the most a 20-minute drive into the middle of the town. So those are great. Those are more affordable. I hate doing this, but I do it a lot. They're more affordable in terms of, in comparison to Boulder. Louisville's got some aggressive pricing downtown. Lafayette is an amazing place to be buying right now because they're going to see crazy equity gain. So yeah, so there are all these little opportunities right outside. Again, not undiscovered, but getting in and in the right location, you'll see huge rewards equity wise over time.
Awesome.
I have a longtime client that lives in Louisville, and they absolutely love it. They came from California
It's
too.
great. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I remember when you could buy like a lot downtown for $275,000, and now it's like it's
Wow.
$1 million. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah.
Not anymore. But
So-
that's happening then in Lafayette, which is only like what, a mile or 2 miles away, you know? So they're all these little, I would call them villages.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you again, Jennifer, for joining us. It was really nice having you, getting another perspective in Colorado and hearing more about Boulder. If you guys want to reach out to Jennifer directly, she's going to be contact information in our link and our description below. Of course, you guys know Nikki and Alan. They've been with us for a little bit, but their information is going to be there as well. We're going to continue this series, right? This is the second one that we've done. We're going to continue to move across the country here as we're finding experts in the areas to talk to, and we'll continue to bring these webinars to you guys. All right. Finally, tomorrow is Friday, so we have our D Financial Friday show where we're going to be talking about a little bit more trading based, even though we usually talk about long-term investing. It's a hot topic to talk about trading, what it means to short a stock, some options. So join us tomorrow at 3 o'clock for that. But otherwise, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all our plans for joining us today. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.